since this Gallant government took office, what has emerged is a pattern of behaviour that is now amounting to a serious breach of the public trust. When they repealed the Taxpayers Protection Act, they said they wouldn't raise the HST, but now a year later, they're raising the HST. And when they brought in rule changes to the legislature, they said they'd have no effect. But here, a year later, they're closing down the legislature and limiting the number of question periods. And, Mr. Speaker, they're also attacking the judiciary to the point where the Chief Justice has to speak out. And now they're muzzling the Auditor General. And here's the reality. The Premier has stacked his cabinet with the Atcon ministers. And they fear the Auditor General's Atcon investigation because it will reveal the layers of corruption that lie inside the cabinet of this government, Mr. Speaker. And so they are limiting the Auditor General's ability to do her job and conduct that investigation. So will the Premier now reverse his position and instead empower the Auditor General, give her the resources she needs to conduct that investigation, and show the people of New Brunswick where the truth lies with Atcon?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Premier.
Président, nous avons déjà répondu à ces questions à plusieurs reprises. En effet, nous avons débattu ces questions à maintes reprises ici dans l'Assemblée législative. Et, Monsieur le Président, j'aimerais souligner que je ne pense pas que le député de l'opposition ait écouté les réponses au ministre, Monsieur le Président. We've made it very clear that we're more than willing to bring the amendments to the Inquiries Act, to law amendments. We'll have a great discussion. They'll be able to ask a lot of questions. We'll have other people participate in the dialogue, and we'll make sure that there's a nice consensus moving forward, Mr. Speaker. And if there's not, there's not. And maybe the bill just won't go anywhere. We'll see, and we have no problem having that conversation, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister stated, this is not a priority of ours. We're focused on creating jobs. We're focused on creating the right climate for economic growth. And I'm surprised to have the Leader of the Opposition not mention WestJet, Mr. Speaker, in his remarks today. We think that's a fantastic announcement, and I have to say, absolutely. And there's real momentum in New Brunswick, and we're going to keep working with the business community to keep it going, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Fredericton West Hanwell.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We didn't really get an answer to my question. The trend of this government has been a desire to consolidate power in the Premier's office, and in fact it's unprecedented. They've stripped away the rights of judges to control how and where they work. They've stripped away the rights of people to be represented in this House by shutting down this legislature and limiting the number of question periods to do this very, very basic challenge function. And they've stripped away the rights of taxpayers to be represented, a fundamental principle, by repealing the Taxpayers Protection Act and then launching on their tax increases. And now they're going after the Auditor General again. So my question, Mr. Speaker, is will the Premier at least tell us where this ends? Does it end now? Does the Premier's attempt to consolidate power end now? Or what other things does he have planned to attack other institutions in our democracy?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I would remind the Leader of the member opposite that his questions are supposed to be about the same subject. I have no idea what he's trying to get at, Mr. Speaker, and he's changing within his questions, and within two questions he has very, very many different topics. But in terms of making sure that we have good governance, Mr. Speaker, we put it in our platform that we would refer more matters to committee. That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. The member from Fredericton South has always said that there should be more stuff happening within committee. We think that's a valid point, and we agree, Mr. Speaker. There are good questions that are asked most of the time. It's a tribune and a vehicle to really get all the information out there, Mr. Speaker. And we're trying to ensure that we prioritize that. We're trying to do that, especially with our budget, Mr. Speaker. That's why we wanted to talk about it during estimates, because this was one of the most transformational budgets we've seen in years, if not decades. And we're very happy that we made the tough choices and the right choices to ensure that we're going to be able to invest in the priorities of New Brunswickers: healthcare, education, and jobs.
Member for Fredericton West Hanwell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's clear the Premier does have trouble following this line of questioning, because there have been so many examples of where this Premier and this government have been abusing their power to consolidate power in their own hands. Mr. Speaker, they have consistently been saying one thing and doing another. And their attack today on the Auditor General amounts to a serious violation of the public trust. And just as have their attacks on rule changes and on taxpayers, and any number of examples, Mr. Speaker. So my question is, when will the Premier start being straight with the people of New Brunswick as to why he is really attacking the Auditor General? And will he empower the Auditor General once and for all, give her the resources and the rights and the legislative ability to conduct an investigation into Atcon? Will he commit to us today that he will give her the resources she needs to do that investigation on behalf of the people of New Brunswick?
That's right. Hey! The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, as I had said, I would invite the member opposite to stick to the same subject for his 3 questions. And, Mr. Speaker, I would also ask him to listen to the answers that we've been giving. The minister made it very clear, crystal clear, Mr. Speaker, that we are going to make the Inquiries Act go through law amendments, which means that there will be a fruitful discussion. Any concerns, any questions, suggestions can be raised at that time. That includes from the opposition and from stakeholders and from the Auditor General, Mr. Speaker. And as the Minister made very clear, the Auditor General is more than willing to ensure that there's a positive dialogue about the potential reforms. And it'd just be great if the opposition took her lead and ensured that there was a constructive conversation about it. So I'm not really sure why the member opposite is so upset this morning. I think that he should listen to the answers. We made it very clear that we're going to work with them, work with stakeholders and other people to make sure that the law amendments provides a good conversation about the reforms.